Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another segment of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and once again we have our hostess and veteran guest, Patti Reed.
Hello!
She's been on this show more times than anyone since I started doing it.
I am the MCAT, Mrs. Doubtfire. Don't forget.
And we have our mascot, Pee Wee. She's just looking at mommy at the moment and having fun. And this time, I decided to go back to our roots. And we're on our original set of Asaph Cafe. This was the original set when I first started doing this show last year. And you know, it's almost been about a year now.
Oh yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. And Scott was on this show a while ago before you came, and we were talking about our careers. He talked about his career with MCAT, how he got started from when he was a student taking journalism classes and things like that.
Yeah, that's a lot of work, you know, because you got to meet the demands of college.
That's it. And I talked about my own career, how I got started. And we just did a flyover of my career from when I was at Loyola Marymount University and the San Francisco Conservatory before that. And
I learned from going through the Mozilla Votech, taking data entry. You know, you have like a couple of weeks of just study and talking to people, and then your teachers say, okay, all this week we're doing tests. So you have to keyboard fast, you have to do everything fast. And most women don't type 60 words a minute after they're done. They just don't. Or things would be a lot faster in the offices too.
But you know, I'm just really happy to be back on our original set for a change, because you know, I have 3 virtual sets now.
Yeah, so you're stepping it up.
Yeah, I think this show has grown, you know, like you're being part of it and being the hostess, and of course Patti being the, I'm sorry,
Pee Wee
being the Patti.
I sometimes wish I wasn't
mascot.
treated like a dog, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Well, here, let's.
at least you have variety now. You have a lot more variety going on. So it's turning into a variety show.
Yeah, let's do Tiny Bubbles.
We have a prop for all you grandmothers and mothers out there. We all know that you guys can't say you don't perform bubbles with your grandchildren and children. So I found this nice little device that helps out in making bubbles. And it's a lot of fun. But you have to keep putting it back in, of course, but that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as there's 20 bubbles or more at a time, we're happy.
Direction too. See if it works. See if it picks up on camera.
Oh, they are doing really fine from over here.
Short version of Tiny Bubbles. Try blowing it this way. See if it'll show up on camera. See if it'll work.
We're having a bubble moment, and it's really kind of messy at first.
So will it go upwards too?
A little bit. Hopefully it won't shorten out your. Because when they pop, they kind of splat. But that's all the fun messing it, huh, women? If it wasn't for us mothers and grandmothers, there'd be no population. Don't let the kids kid you.
Yeah, on second thought, maybe I better not. It's making the piano all wet.
Yes, it is.
That was the theme to the Lawrence Welk show. I'm going to do that again, you know, with their bubbles.
But they come out really good over here. There's, because of the darkness a little bit here, we have awesome bubble strategy going on here. Pee-wee! Here's some more bubbles, baby. Here's the baby. Come here, stay. Here, you're not in. Want that? Yeah, see? This is an advertisement for his Norris Welk show. It comes with bubbles. The special effects in life, you know. You gotta have special effects in life because otherwise things get really boring and routine makes everything boring as it is. So we gotta liven it up. Go against the grain sometimes.
Yeah, so that's my theme, not my theme, the theme to the Lawrence Welk show. And we were talking about that Lawrence Welk show when Scott was on here a while back too. Now your little dog's not not gonna get bubbles in her food, is she?
No, she usually eats it up before she gets it down to the bench.
Okay, if we get a chance, let's turn her around and have her say hi to our audience there.
Here, Pee-wee, ready?
Let's see.
Hello, everybody! Happy Mother's Day! Woo, 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 woo! Woo, 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 woo. We got it done. We got it done.
There you
That's
go.
as far as she wants to go with that.
Yeah, I know. I realize that.
Stay.
So anyway, Scott and I were talking about careers in the last episode and stuff like that.
Well, you know, it's really ironic. Like I told my daughter, who's all grown up now, I'm 26, that I myself started out as a baby, and I had to be a sister, and I had to be a daughter, and then I got to be a granddaughter to my grandpa and such. So all those roles that you take on, they do come with some degree of respect, and also you have to put it as a mandatory thing of obligation. You have to live up to those titles. And it's not just the title that, oh, I'm going to school, I'm a student, or oh, I'm going to work and I'm an employee, or I live in America and I'm an American citizen. All them titles, if you don't work them, they're worthless. And you got to always do that, and you got to show some gratitude and be grateful that you get those titles and you get the chance to have people that love you and are part of you. Because grandmothers, you know, when they talk, they're not talking about this era, they're talking about when they were a child and a teenager and stuff. And things were cheaper and still confusing back then and hard, so.
Yeah. Well, Patti, thanks for being part of the show today. You know, with these hours that we do the show 1 till 4 every Thursday, it's sometimes tough to get a guest on because they have to work, and I understand that.
And
so,
traffic.
Yeah. So
Since the computers control our traffic lights now, everything's like 15 or 30 seconds quicker, so watch out, fender benders.
Yeah, so this show will just be you and I, just more laid back today. But we did our Mother's Day show already, and we can talk about grandma or whatever you want to talk about. And while you're talking, I'm just going to be just playing here.
What I would love for my Mother's Day grandma thing is to be surrounded by children, especially little ones, babies. I love babies. Right now at Walmart, there are animated flowers, daisies and marigolds and all kinds of things. And when you press the button on the on the water pot that they're in, they spin around and go up and down and play different ones. Like I'm walking on sunshine, and it's a beautiful morning.
Let's have fun with that. Isn't that pretty?
And the flowers dance to it. So you gotta get a good laugh at that. And babies love those flowers. That's some battery operated Miracle Grow right there.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. That's from the musical Oklahoma. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I did. It's very lively.
Yeah,
The men were excellent dancers.
Yeah.
They hoed down very
and
good.
Shirley Jones did a great job at that.
Oh yeah,
too.
she had a
was
set
a
of pipes on
younger
her
woman.
that.
Yeah.
And she's good at dancing too. I didn't realize she could shake her legs so well.
Remember the song? That was in the film.
Oh yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
Something like that.
Wasn't that?
There's the one where she sings in front of those girls after she breaks up with the boyfriend of hers. For a
Oh
while.
yeah, and they're all listening and going, what?
Yeah,
What?
What's the name of that song? If I can remember.
Pretending to be very sympathetic. Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of the song at the moment, but it's just such a neat song, you know.
I actually saw Paint Your Wagon at the Wilma Theater.
You did?
Yes, and I had no idea at that time because I'd never been to one of those big Broadway shows. The Wilma does a very good job. It's so huge on the inside, you know, because you go by it, you don't see it's very big. You think it's an apartment building, but you go inside it to one of those plays and they're huge. And then they serve you candies and champagne in between intermissions, which also brightens the moment. So I was in on all those chocolate, strawberries, and champagne I could have. And it was just great. It was just great. It's live theater is so much more, you know, than sitting in a movie theater, you know, unless it's 3D, you know. Even watching a movie getting made is so much more than just sitting and watching, unless it's continuously action and can keep you captivated. And I'd love to make my own comedy called Messed Up County. It's a slapstick and it helps you laugh at the judicial since they want to be laughed at some days. Like having kangaroos hopping through the corridors to prepare everybody for kangaroo court.
Okay.
And have the staff wearing their own special glasses that are blinders in case they can't get the point of view.
I see. Well, let's talk about musicals for a moment. I did some musicals in my time. When I was in high school, we did our version of The Sound of Music, high school version.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did the Pajama Game, if I remember correctly.
Oh, when they're in the bedroom with Julie Andrews.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I graduated high school, I did a few little musicals too in the background. Not real Broadway, obviously,
right.
but they were fun to do.
When I was grade school, I did a play called Stone Soup,
Mm-hmm.
and it was basically a story from a book that was talking about these poor men that had nothing to eat, and they were complaining, and so they decided because they could get a hold of water and rocks, they would make stone soup. And so it was very entertaining to figure out how these three guys that really didn't have a lot of intelligence were going to make a whole meal out of something that would break your teeth. So it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm just not going to ever be a Broadway star, obviously. If you do that for real, that's really hard.
Well, you have to have some opera experience too, because your vocals, it's, the thing about a play, a Broadway show,
Mm-hmm.
and an opera, they're very similar.
Yeah,
Very
well, I
similar.
mean, even the musical part of it, I would never sing. I can't sing as it is, but
Yeah.
just the musical aspect is difficult because you have to synchronize the music with the...
And you're
singing on
actually
stage.
playing a character who's feeling that song. And they're alone and they have to rejoice or they have to be depressed. It's never in the middle. They can't be just it's nothing like that. Either you're over happy or you're under happy. So either way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway,
That's why I write poetry and I've had some of my poems published.
okay.
Yeah, so.
What kind of
Well, I've been called a political poet. No surprise, huh? And I just took my experiences, instead of keeping it bottled up and let it drive me crazy and what others could do to somebody, I wrote it down. And I didn't really think that it's much to me, even if I read it over. But when I sent it in to poetry.com, they thought, wow. And when I wrote the poem, America's Becoming Endangered, that became the first poem on the first page. So that's like excitement, all big time, because you're the first one. And me describing things about America before it happened really enlightened a lot of people that were reading with purpose, not just reading to read. They're really going to get something out. And the nice part is they didn't have to go through a whole novel to get that purpose. It's just one page, one moment, right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. I'm going to play a tune here. You'll probably recognize it.
Some say love,
You can sing along if you
it
want.
is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger
I'm following you.
and endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and your soul to see.
Good. You're going to probably want a copy of this too, so very
Yes.
good, very good.
Well, I used to sing that in choir.
Well, let's have you do some singing while you're on this show today. I said I was going to have you do that anyway. Let's see. Do you know Killing Me Softly? By Roberta Flack?
I know of the song, but I don't know it that well, no.
Okay, let's see if we can think of a song that you would
I know Beth by Kiss.
Yeah, but I don't. don't. I wouldn't know how to play that on the piano anyway. Yeah.
I think he started that on a guitar, Peter Criss, anyway.
Yeah,
The drummer.
I don't think I'd be able to do any Kiss music on the piano.
Well, we're not asking for Detroit Rock City, so it's a good thing. Let's see here.
We'll think of something.
Do you know the song Sunshine by John Denver? Sunshine.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
On my shoulder.
Is that the key you do it in?
I think it got it.
Okay, we have to figure out a key first. So let's figure out
Sunshine.
Hold on.
That might work there. Sunshine.
I don't know. What if you just start singing and I'll just come in and see if I can. Because I don't know how to figure out what key you're going to do that in.
All right. Sunshine.
Okay.
On my shoulders, look so lovely.
Is that too high for you?
I think I can handle it.
Okay.
Sunshine, almost always makes me high. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Well, you got
Hey,
it.
hey, with the monkeys.
No, let's have fun with it.
Walking down the street, to everyone we meet. Hey, we're the monkeys, fooling around's what we do. We're just singing, got anybody like you.
Something like that, yeah.
Name
Well,
that tune.
Yeah. Well, Pete looks like she's just having a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, she likes her treats. She's spoiled. Right, yeah. But she still texts me in at night.
Oh, there you go.
She has to make sure that I'm in bed and I'm happy and comfortable, and then she goes to sleep. Somebody loves me. They really love me. Ready? Here we go. Hey,
Yeah,
that's
that's the
timed
Pee-wee.
out.
Yeah.
The
that's
bubbles
just
know. They know when you're stopping.
Yeah.
They're on time. Good batteries.
Well, anyway, one thing we could talk about, we're going back to the original set here, and well, we're not gonna do it every week, obviously.
Well, when you have these two guys up here, these two right
Cary
here,
Grant and
Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah.
Well, music that comes to mind is like the good old summertime.
Oh yeah.
The good old summertime, in the good old summertime. I don't remember the rest of it. That's just you and mine, in the good old summer. Oh, I don't know.
Something like that, yeah. It's been a while since I've done that song. But anyway, getting back to this set, I wanted to go back to our roots. I was telling Scott that earlier. I wanted to go back to the roots, and this was my original set.
To
as you know.
remind you of where it comes from.
Yeah,
where it
and
began.
I just decided to remember home. So that's why I decided to do the cafe on this set today. 'Cause
See,
this was how
Asaph,
this
he's
show
from
got
the East
started.
Coast, and I'm from Missoula, Montana.
Well, actually, if you want to get technical, I was born in Alaska. and
Oh.
grew up in California.
So you're at Top West.
Yeah.
So how do you like winter weather?
I don't know, because I was too young to remember it. My father
Oh.
was in the Air Force,
Okay.
and he just happened to be stationed up there, Ladd Air Force Base up there in Fairbanks.
So did they call you an Army brat because?
Oh
of
yeah, I
that?
got called that all my life pretty much. So,
So you're used to traveling around then?
Yeah, in fact, from the time I was born to the time I was 12, we just traveled everywhere. Taipei, Taiwan, U.S. back and forth a lot of times.
So you
Like
know the difference
Virginia,
between what it's like to live in America and other places?
Yeah, Virginia, Washington, D.C., you name it. We just all over the place. And then when I was 12, we settled in Sacramento, California. So that's kind of our military history, I should say, my father's, as far as when I came into the
Well, did you know that you and Chuck Norris have a lot in common?
No, I didn't know that.
He was a military Army brat.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. His mother and father, in fact, had a lot of domestic violence between them because his father, being in the military, was angry a lot. And with all the training of being able to combat in it, a lot of times took his anger out on Chuck Norris's mom and Aaron Norris.
I didn't know that.
Aaron Norris and Chuck, they were the best of friends, not just brothers. But it came a time when Chuck had had enough of his dad's beating on his mom and decided that, Mom, it's time to move on and relocate and get out of the military. So he helped his mom, and Aaron, his brother, helped his mom, and they, one time when their dad was drunk and everything, they made sure that everything was packed up, and they left the house and withdrew from being in the military as children of the military and a wife of the military.
This is the theme to Walker, Texas Ranger. Do you remember it?
Oh, yeah. And that was funny, too, because Chuck Norris was singing it.
Yeah.
So, it's more like he's rapping to it, but...
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's why... when Chuck Norris makes his movies, I know a lot of parents and people might think they're violent, but actually it's about how the heroine, the good guy, is always, no matter how morally right you are, no matter how morally you try to do things right, there's going to be always somebody that's going to knock you down and say, nope, you're going to do it my way and dictate to you.
Yeah.
And that's why he pushes, if you believe you're right and your heart's right and your mind's right and everything.
Well, this info you were talking about Chuck Norris, I wasn't aware of that because I'm not familiar with his career.
He wrote a book.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Is that where he talked about all that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not a huge paperback book, but it's good size.
Well, you would think that if you were the parent of Chuck Norris and your son grew up to be the greatest fighter in the world, you'd think he'd want to treat mommy right, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, he does. He does spoil
no,
his
not
mom.
Chuck Norris. I'm talking about the father.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
I'm talking about the father. Just think if you're married, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a son. The son grows up to become the greatest fighter in the world. Wouldn't you think that if sons and moms are like mommy's boy and you're the husband, you want to treat that woman right?
Well,
You
Chuck,
don't want that son in your
right.
face?
Well, Chuck didn't really get into martial arts and becoming a star until he was like in his middle or late 20s, because he basically took up martial arts to protect himself in case there was any other men that acted like his dad, and
Is
to
that
protect
what he
his
said in
mom.
the book?
Yeah.
What's the name of the book? Do you know what the name of the book is?
God, it's a red little paperback.
Okay, well, see, I was not aware of that, but you know...
He wrote the book back, I think, in the 80s or the late 70s.
Well, you know, whether it's Chuck Norris or myself or whoever, it's amazing how many people come from dysfunctional, broken homes.
Well, anger is what drives that out a lot of times.
Well, see, I don't
and
want to pick on the
expense.
military. Let's talk about that for a second. That's one of the reasons why I never wanted to join the military. That
Right.
was one reason. I was afraid of what military life would do to my personality as a person.
Well, a lot of times the military
And
treats
myself.
the enlistees as objects.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not here to pick on the military because
Right.
I think there's a place for it, and everybody is different. But I used to tell people, you know, coming from a military family myself, if you're going to join that, you better make sure you're doing it for all the right reasons.
Right. It's a very hard life. It's
a
not
difficult
easy.
life, yeah, and just the discipline of, you know, like if you're an officer or you're
Or just
private
trying to have a
or-
relationship or a family. It's very heartbreaking because you
Right.
cannot be around. You're on call all the time, you know.
Yeah, when my father was sent to Pakistan at that time when I was in the first grade, the Air Force wouldn't let my mother and me go with my father. So we lived with my grandmother for a whole year and a half.
Took a break.
Yeah, and
Had a vacation. Cool.
Yeah, so my father was out there doing his thing in Pakistan at that time, and they weren't blowing up people in cars in those days like they do today.
A lot of rebellion.
But there was still a lot of fighting going on in that part of the world
Right.
at that time that the Air Force thought was too dangerous for me.
Well,
and
I've
my
been
mother
hearing
to
about
go.
the Middle East since I was a child. I went
Yeah.
directly from Vietnam into the Middle East. We didn't really get a break like was needed in order to get things restored like they should.
Yeah, but anyway, getting back to this military thing, so I didn't see my father for a whole year and a half, and my mom and I lived with, I'm talking about my birth mother, we lived with my grandmother, so, and eventually a year and a half later my father came back home, but, you know, I just never wanted that life.
Hmm. It's not a peaceful life.
And I have nothing against the military because I think that that's an important organization to have if you're defending our freedoms and defending our country, and I think military people deserve royal treatment when they go off and risk their lives fighting for
Well,
our
I believe
freedom.
that even Memorial Day, a month that Memorial Day falls on, which is this
Yeah.
month, and Veterans Day, actually it should be a whole month of celebrating, not just one day. There's whoever started saying holidays must be one day out of the month. Don't listen to that.
But
It's-
see, what
get more out
bothers
of
me,
it.
what bothers me is when our troops come home, how they get so mistreated and forgotten.
Right, and they're not even paid. They go through identity
See, and
theft,
that bothers
not
me.
paid, and they're being forced to be homeless when they shouldn't be homeless.
Yeah.
Mil-
And I may not have wanted to be in the military, but I think they deserve to be treated and not forgotten by their country and not forgotten by...
And I believe too that when the military buys land and sets it aside for the purpose of shelters, gated communities for the veterans and that, don't lease it out to another company. Give it to them. Don't upset them because you've already trained them to be
I'll
hired.
play this while we're talking about
You played them. You've taught the young that are enlisted to become hired hitmen and killers. So you don't really want to upset that kind of personality. It's not a smart thing to do. They should make them happy. Say, oh well, I don't want to make you mad. Here's your gated community.
Well, all you have to do is when a person comes home, they should
Keep
have the
promises.
proper care for
Mhm.
soldiers. They should be able to...
And keep their promises. Whatever they sign in agreement, keep the promises.
But no, I mean, there's a term for that. When you're fighting and you have to...
Combatant?
There's a military term, if I can think of it, to get them to adjust back to civilian life.
A readjustment?
Something like that. It's something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Rehabilitation.
something like that. And that's why I feel like our troops, when they come home, they should be properly treated. They should get the counseling they need. They should get the benefits that they're entitled to. They should get all these things.
And talk to people that have been through their experiences.
Yeah, whatever it takes.
It's important. So they don't feel like they're the only one that's been through that, because believe me, 15 million of us are going through this.
See, and,
And we're not all
I
the
think part of
same.
it's because they end up being forgotten, because you have protesters, and I understand that part of
Mhm.
it, but they just shouldn't be forgotten. Even though I personally didn't want to be in the military, they should not be forgotten.
One thing that I've always established since I've been helping the veterans since 2008, and with my own grandfather and such,
Mhm.
who was pure Irish. Curly red hair and green eyes, now you know where I get it. But when you take an innocent person, doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man, and you turn them into a murderer, and regardless what the cause is for, they're never the same, especially if they don't believe in killing. And when they have to see how they're surrounded by death and anger and rage and self-defense on purpose, it's not a fun thing. First of all, nobody really wants to see a lot of blood and guts everywhere, especially from babies on up.
Yeah, well,
It's heartbreaking.
And like you're talking about, that's why I didn't want to join that, because I was afraid it would change me.
It will.
I went to
It would.
music school. Well, actually, I did student teaching for 2 years when I first graduated back in '76.
Well, just by the aftermath that you went through with your father, that changed you. You didn't
Yeah,
get
I
the
know.
full
I know.
loving attention that's needed by a child. Because if a child, they had a episode on PBS. It was these Asian monkeys,
Uh-huh.
and they showed a mother monkey that loved her son. And now the irony was, the two baby monkeys were half brothers.
Mhm.
So the mother's been busy. But the mother nurtured one and treated him like a prince. The other one she rejected for whatever reason. And it showed that the one that was rejected grew stronger mentally, but grew without nourishment, without love. So it always felt like an outsider. It always felt like it wasn't going to be fed and it wasn't going to be loved. And
Okay.
so at a point it got used to not getting the love and attention. And when the time came for the mother to stop nursing the little prince one, that one threw a tantrum. And we expected anybody, And the funny part is, the one that didn't get the attention, all of the females of their group had nursed the unfortunate monkey. And that one grew up stronger, thinking, well, anybody can love me. I don't need mom. Anybody can love me. So that's the difference. When you have a child that's nurtured, they want to be a people person. They want to be wanted. The ones that don't get nurtured, they are a lot of times antisocial and isolated.
Well, I'll talk about my dad for a second. His life was not exactly the most easiest life. So, see, this is what made me understand him when I went through what I went through with him.
Mm-hmm.
He was abandoned by his own mother when he was a little boy.
See, he didn't have the
And
loving
he was
and
not
nurturing.
raised by his mom He was raised by his grandmother, which was my great-grandmother. And the short version, I think he never recovered from that.
Probably felt like an outcast.
I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't
Right.
born. I'm only speculating. And then he gets into the military and he gets out of the projects and gets away from.
It's kind of like my
growing up
children.
in New York with the family, and so that's probably where his head was at, and which would probably explain why it was so difficult growing up under his household, which I wrote in my autobiography.
It's kind of like my children, you know.
I understand my father. I don't excuse his behavior, but I
Right.
understand it.
Right.
But it was harder, like I wrote in my book, it was harder to have a relationship with my birth mother than it ever was with my father. And the short version of that is because my mom got pregnant with me before she married my father. And in those days, if a woman got pregnant, they were
Yes.
forced to marry.
Right.
And my father was abusing her then. So when she was forced to marry him, then I come along, she felt trapped.
Right.
That's what it was like. And then
She probably was shunned by her relatives too.
No, not really.
No?
I mean, yes, and not really shunned. But I noticed, my mom comes from a family of 11 children.
Right.
She was the 9th one born. So when I was around my relatives at that time, I think they were uncomfortable having me around
Right.
simply because I was the firstborn of this man who was abusing their sister.
Right.
That's what it was like growing up with my birth mom. And that's why it was harder with my birth mother than it ever was with my father. And I wrote about that in my book. And
See, like
that was therapeutic for me when I did it. It was very
it's like
healthy.
my children. My
Very
children,
therapeutic.
for almost 13 years, got used to me being there and loving them and everything. And then their oldest brother, Brian, who flat out tells a lie, the boy that cried wolf, who brought us problems, didn't anticipate that even though I fixed the whole scenario that he created of his own free will, that it would come back and cause problems again within a few days. And because of that, they felt like they were isolated and pushed away, like I didn't want to love them, which wasn't the truth. And now that they're all adults in their 20s, they've noticed that there was a few things that, wow, okay, wait a minute. My mom used to say, God, I got to get the rent money together, and I'm doing that now. Oh, I got to pay the electric bill. Oh, I'm doing that now. Oh, I got to get to my work. Oh, I'm doing that now. So there really wasn't things that mom didn't want to do. It was outsiders telling them from their age on up, which they were almost all, except for the youngest one, Michael. He was going on 7. But they were all headed towards their preteen years, and they were learning quickly the adulthood world without me there to nurture them. And it's a hard world when when you become an adult and you're not ready and you're thrown into the lion's den. It's really hard, and you got to avoid some of them lions because they will eat you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, to sum this part of the conversation up, if you're lucky enough to come from a good family, I say enjoy it. Thank the good Lord.
And be glad.
And if you don't, I learned how to understand and forgive, and I think that's the most important thing. Doesn't excuse the behavior. You can still detach yourself, like that time when we talked about not putting
You
yourself
can
in
love
harm's
somebody,
way.
but you don't have to like everything that they do wrong to you.
Yeah, and you don't have to put yourself in the bee's nest again.
Right, and you don't have to blame yourself when somebody does something to you, because for whatever reason, they get bored or they're not happy with their lives. There are instigators out there that purposely spend their days going out of the way to destroy your plants. So have more than one plant. Or, if you have an investment, or they're there to do bad business. And if you get a feeling of that, follow that instinct and say, I got to go to the bathroom and find the back door and get away from them. Do not let them walk you into that. Don't do it.
Well, yeah, but I did learn how to forgive my parents and my family. Now, I haven't seen my family in 20 years. And it's not because I don't love them. I had to do what was called detaching, which you and I talked about. And that's one of the reasons I moved to Montana, to start my life over at that time.
I haven't lived with my children for 15 years, and it's really hard when you don't get a Mother's Day card or love or anything from your children for that amount of time. It's wrong. It's disrespectful too, in a sense.
Well, perhaps, but see, you can't kick yourself and live with that expectation. You've got to let that go, and you just have to live your life and just wish them well.
Yeah. It's hard to do when you have a void. When you have that void, you really you can only do so many techniques to fill it up, and it's hard.
You never get over it; you get through it.
Yeah.
And
It's just, you're a survivor.
I've learned to live my life without my family. That doesn't. It's still. I get painful moments after all these years, but you know, sometimes you can't fix things.
Right.
You have to just leave it alone and wish well and go on.
And
That's
you know,
what
a
I
lot
would
of
tell
times
people.
too, children that are in foster care, they're taught to have a closed mind and not resolve everything because that's how
Well, I
they're.
don't know anything about that
do that.
system, but I can only speak for myself.
It's a broken
so.
system. It very is.
Yeah, I can only speak for me, so that's what I had to do personally.
The majority of children that are in foster care are from poor families, and it's not right, you know, because